Hey everybody, welcome back to the Uncaped Mama Podcast. I am Dom, the Uncaped Mama. I have been gone for a minute, y'all. My last recording, I think I was wearing the same shirt, and I was actually very sick that day. I didn't know it at the time, but I had COVID, and that was the first time I had COVID, and I knew like something was off. I thought it was allergies because I had been traveling to see my family, went to see my best friend for her birthday and spend time with her, and COVID, it started off with COVID. Once I got over that, I had another infection. I had an allergic reaction to the medicine from that infection. That triggered a flare of my genetic disorder called porphyria. And so the month of July, down. Okay, down. But I am back. I know it's like late August at this point. But during that time being down and then coming back, I fell into a pattern of like perfectionism and overthinking, and reminded myself of why I created this platform, which is just for me to show up and just be and to talk about things that are important to me, things that I'm seeing. And so I am excited to be back for this episode where I'm going to talk about why parenting advice ignores economic realities. I have some notes here. So if you see me look down, that is what's happening. I'm ready to go. Let's jump in, y'all, because it's been a minute. So as a mom, you get a lot of advice, and sometimes you get advice you're not asking for. I remember one time before I had my son, I was just sharing information about diapers, like different diaper companies. There was like a recall. There was something happening with diapers. I just shared it. And the comments on Facebook were flooded with people in my network telling me what diapers to choose. I didn't ask for that. I literally just shared an informational post. Just because I'm becoming a mom didn't mean I asked for your advice. It also doesn't mean that I need it. And we also get advice about money. It does not consider your financial reality at all, but parents get a lot of advice without anybody recognizing, what your finances look like. So you may hear things like, oh, just get a nanny. Since you work from home, then the kid can stay at home. You don't have to worry about putting them in a daycare. Nannies cost money and you want to be able to pay a nanny. Well, I also may not have space in my home to pay a nanny. Or you may hear things like, go and pay to get their hair done. Right. Or you hear, put them in this type of school or that type of school. You should consider private school. Feed them organic foods. Go and get your foods from these locations. And you're not considering the economic realities that a lot of moms and parents are facing. And so that's what this is all about. I want to talk all about just the economic realities of parenting. And I want to talk about it from a place of like, as many different realities as I can. I want to talk about the majority of people's experience, right? So I'm literally going to be talking about people living under the poverty line to those maybe you're somewhere in the lower six figures, right? That is most people in the United States, okay? And potentially the world, but I live in the United States. I can't tell you about really what's happening in other countries like that because I never lived there, but we're going to jump into it, okay? And I want to set the stage by just reminding people that parenting advice often assumes privilege. It assumes privilege, even when it comes from people who don't have those privileges, right? If you don't have extra money, time, support, a lot of what you hear feels irrelevant. It feels like empty advice. So you're like, okay, that doesn't apply to me. And that often leads to a lot of guilt and shame where moms might be thinking, okay, so great. I don't have any of that, so I'm not a good parent. And I have fell into those cycles. I'm currently in one of those cycles right now where I had to choose to leave the workplace. I had to choose myself. It was not a good environment for me mentally. It was impacting my physical and mental health. I was talking to my care team about it, and one of my doctors said, hey, I can't medicate you to get through the workday every day. Like that, one, it's not sustainable. And two, like it's not good for you. So we need to have a different conversation. And I realized if I'm not here, I don't get to be a mom. I won't be present for my kids. And so making that decision, which I believe was the right decision for me at this stage of my life, and with all that I know, it was the right decision to make. But it changed the economics of my household and what I'm able to do for my children. And so some advice, like there are things that I've been giving advice for that aren't landing, or people are like, oh, great. Now you qualify for all of these things for your son who has autism, and the realities of living in Texas is finding out, yeah, there may be some services and things and some assistance that we qualify for, but actually the places where he already has established relationships with his therapist and things like that, they don't accept some of those services. And so I just want to talk about those realities because I'm living it. And also I know other people have been living it much longer than me. So this is going to be a good time, I think. All right. So I've got some of these like stats here and I'm just going to talk through them. And this is really talking about the economic realities that I was talking about. So, excuse me. I would sneeze at the beginning of the podcast. So in 2023, about 60% of married couple families have both partners employed, and that's coming from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. And for many of those households, 2 incomes are required to stay afloat, not to like thrive. This is, I need 2 incomes in the household to stay afloat. And if we remember that the average, you know what, I'm about to look it up right now, because the average American, this is one person, right? Did I hit enter? I'm waiting on that to come up. But if we consider that the average American makes a little less than $40,000 a year, let's say both of these parents are making the average combined income, that's $80,000 a year. Okay. And so they need that to stay afloat, not thrive. You add in student loan debt, the rising cost of housing, the rising cost of food. If that child has special needs, maybe autism or a physical disability or any other disability, right? Or they just need additional supports through, medical professionals, that cost increase. And so this study is saying, or this data is saying that 2 incomes are required just to stay afloat, which, undercuts the advice that often comes that assumes one parent is always available, when a lot of times both parents are working. And that doesn't change the load that those parents have to take on. It doesn't change the mental load or the invisible load that even the moms take on. They're still handling the logistics, giving rides, going to schools, trying to have meetings. All of that sort of thing is still present. And so it's someone saying, you just work from home. Not to mention more people are returning to office, or a lot of the professions out there never were remote. You can't work remotely working as a teller at a bank, right? You can't work remotely as a personal banker. You can't work remotely if you work at a daycare. You can't work remotely if you're a teacher. You can't work remotely if you're a nurse. You can't work remotely if you work at a gas station or grocery store, right? Like, that is not remote work. You always, at a restaurant, you always have to be present, right? So if we consider where the average person works, it already wasn't remote. It was already something you couldn't do from home. But a lot of companies are bringing you back to the office for a few days a week or every day a week. And so some of the advice about that doesn't help. It's not available. It's not accessible. It's not relevant. It's not relatable to parents. Also, the cost of childcare. So the national average cost of childcare in 2023 was $11,582 per year. $11,582 per year. That's the average, which means there's childcare that costs more than that. And if you add on multiple children and the childcare center in your area doesn't offer a discount for multiple children, it's expensive, right? And on average, you need childcare for at least 5 years until kids can start school. We don't want to assume that your child is going to qualify for PK3 if that's even available. We can't assume that your child is going to get into Head Start, and we can't assume that your child is going to be able to get into pre-K4, right? They may start at kindergarten. That's their first school time. And so childcare costs money. A nanny costs money. Even an in-home daycare costs money. And if you imagine that your family or your support system, if they are around, they also need to work and take care of themselves and their household, not much is available. Also, 67% of parents spent 20% or more of their income on childcare in 2023. That was up 51% from 2022. So between 2022 and 2023, parents spent 20% more of their money on childcare. Now imagine what that 20% would have gone to. People start talking to you about emergency savings. People start talking to you about investing. People start talking to you about certain clothes and an aesthetic that your child should have. People start talking to you about hair care. Where's the money gonna come from when I'm just trying to get the child to school? And I'm spending 20% more than I spent a year ago. Maybe I'm spending 20% more than I did a few months ago. And we can break down and we can understand why the cost went up, right? There's the rising cost of maybe the rent or the mortgage on the building, because that has happened. You also want to be able to pay the childcare workers more, right? That's fair. But the bulk of that payment comes from the families who are there. And again, these are just average, everyday families who are in the system where most people make minimum wage. So they're not even making enough for childcare, let alone being able to qualify for childcare payment assistance. That's not always a reality. So I'm just painting the picture here. Black and Latino families are disproportionately impacted by this. They often spend a higher percentage of their household income on childcare than white families. And so that could be the nature of where they live, the systemic realities of maybe the type of jobs that they have, being able to qualify for certain benefits. Like, there's so much that goes into that inequity. Also, parents with disabilities. There are parents who are raising children with disabilities, or the parent has a disability. And so you're going to face twice the financial burden and the time burden, no matter what the disability is, compared to households without disabilities. And that comes from the National Council on Disability and some information that they shared in 2023. So this is still very relevant. Last thing is time poverty. So the BLS American did a time use survey, and that shows that mothers, especially single mothers, and by the way, there are a multitude of reasons that a mother will be a single mother, okay? We're not getting into that debate on this podcast or in my comments. They have significantly less leisure time than fathers. So time poverty is a major barrier in implementing well-meaning advice, where people are like, oh, you need self-care, you need to go do this and that. They don't get as much leisure time, even partnered. I made a reel about this, I've probably made a couple reels about this, how we hear a lot like, oh, give that man time to go hang with his friends, to watch football, to do sports, like whatever that thing is, right? But we're not giving the same grace to moms. Moms still have that invisible load of, you're not a good mom unless you're always with your kids. There was a time when I was on Twitter where there were constantly tweets about how moms need to be at home. Like, why do you think that you should go out on the weekend? You got kids, you're a parent, you should be at home. But dads should be able to go out. We talk about how dads, when they get off from work, they should have some time to decompress before they start interacting with the family. We're not saying that about moms. Moms are expected to wake up, immediately take care of children and get them ready before they've done anything for themselves. And then they drop kids off or get them to the bus, get them all ready, right? They go to work. As soon as they get off work, they're picking up the kids. They get home. They're supposed to be cleaning the house, making dinner, getting the kids ready for bed, and then go to bed. And at the same time, they're expected to be a good partner, supposed to be able to have the energy and the mindset, right? And all of this, like, peak health. How? When? When are they supposed to do that? How do they fit it in without support? So those are just some stats that I wanted to start with. And so I did some thinking about some really tone deaf advice that I've heard. And so I've got three that I want to talk about. One is gentle parenting expectations. And so some of the advice that comes when we're talking about gentle parenting is it assumes that parents can just be endlessly patient and emotionally available. Now, this comes from people misunderstanding gentle parenting and where it came from. I have a video on that on my platform, so please go check that out. But that's the assumption that you're always gentle and kind and patient and calm. That's not even a reality for the average human. You have feelings too. You are going to be impatient, overwhelmed, sad, angry. Maybe you're overly excited. Maybe you're anxious. Maybe you're depressed. There is a lot that can happen. And so telling people about gentle parenting while assuming that means that the parent just ignores their own feelings and they're constantly patient, emotionally available, always gentle, always happy is crazy. And if we add on the layer of a single parent, or people working multiple jobs, or we add on disabilities and all these other things that I mentioned in the statistics portion, that expectation is super unrealistic. You don't have to do gentle parenting to treat your child with humanity, right? And dignity, while also giving yourself that same grace, compassion, and treating yourself with that same grace, compassion, and dignity. You need that too. And so there is a way to balance it, but the advice that comes out is really tone deaf. And it tries to fit an aesthetic, and a lot of times it's not necessarily reality. My form of parenting is treating my children like whole human beings. So they get a choice, right? They get options. They get the opportunity to feel. I'm not telling them how to feel, right? I want to make space for them to be able to communicate. All of those sorts of things I want to allow them to explore these things that they're interested in. I want to be supportive, all of that good stuff, right? But not at the expense of my mental health. Because if I break down, I can't help them. I can't be gentle with them. If I'm not gentle to myself first, I can't be gentle with them. And so that takes a balance, right? And it takes learning. And it's not about perfect. I don't like yelling. And there's times where I have yelled. And then I feel like shit. Like I feel terrible because I raised my voice. And I have to recover from that, right? It doesn't feel good, So that's one, the gentle parenting expectations. Another is all of the non-toxic and organic recommendations. Now, I want to preface this by saying you will see some content come out for me soon about non-toxic and organic recommendations, okay? I'm going to talk more about that in a second, but I just want to preface that. But research shows that Black and Hispanic families face greater exposure to environmental toxins, yet clean alternatives are often unaffordable. So in the neighborhoods that maybe you live in, because of the systems that are set up, there is environmental toxins everywhere, in the water, in the air. Maybe it's coming through your ventilation systems in your house. There may be like sound pollution. And we also know that data centers are popping up all over the country in low income areas that may be surrounded by Black and brown people. And that adds a lot of pollution to the area, right? And so you're telling people to access these clean alternatives. Where are they supposed to get them? You're assuming that people want to buy them online, that they understand all of the ingredients, and also that these ingredients really are actually safe. A lot of times they're also unaffordable. We should be able to go into the store and find very clean, affordable, non-toxic products. But the reality of the situation is we don't. All right. Like these are very deliberate decisions made by corporations to make things that may be better for you cost more, or make you think that these things that cost more are inherently better when a lot of times they're not. And so telling moms to only buy organic or to go and find these non-toxic products without acknowledging like the systemic inequities is hella tone deaf, and it is exhausting. And I'm a person who has some privileges where, I may have more access to these things. And at the same time, I recognize the reality of like, it's not accessible. You have to go to very specific places or navigate very specific, like you have to navigate MLMs or all these different systems or affiliate marketing or all these things to really like get to a place of like understanding. You also have to do research, and everybody was not taught how to research in the way in which I'm like intentional about going deep in researching. And so, it's hard. The advice is tone deaf. You're telling people to come up with money, and then suddenly they're supposed to be able to access all this stuff. And we don't even know how beneficial it is, right? And some of it is. But you have to imagine that the masses of people have not heard about these products, but they get this advice. There's also this self-care advice, right? A friend of mine actually just posted it today, a few minutes ago on Facebook, and she was saying she planned a self-care and like spa day for herself, and then the school called, she had to go pick her kid up. And I was saying, every time that happens, I'm so hurt, right? And so we get that type of self-care advice. Oh, girl, you need a massage, go take a spa day, just rest, take a day off. That ignores that many parents don't have childcare backup or the money or the physical accessibility, especially if they have disabilities, to just go take a spa day, right? To get there, let alone to have the time. And you're assuming that they've got extra PTO. Like everywhere does not have unlimited PTO. And so also as a person who used to promote self-care and I had a skincare business, I think the commercialization of self-care and like the consumer nature of self-care is disgusting. And I never wanted to say that self-care had to cost you mass amounts of money. I think I tried to push that through in my business, but I think there are other things that we could be talking about in terms of self-care, like allowing moms to rest, like allowing moms to have fun and have joy, like allowing moms to eat well, and making that more accessible, allowing moms to take a quick breather, allowing moms to get mental health support, all those, making supplements cleaner and more accessible, because those things can help the body, especially if they are good and not full of fillers and like chemicals or things that you actually don't need. So that advice is tone deaf. The gentle parenting expectations, the go and get non-toxic organic products, and the self-care advice, tone deaf. And the impact of that is extra financial stress and like a negative impact on mental health. Lower income parents are reporting higher guilt and lower parenting confidence when they can't follow mainstream advice. And that comes from a report from the APA entitled Stress in America. And that was in 2022. And I think that's really true. So much guilt. Even when I talk to family members, so much guilt. So much like, I feel like I'm not a good parent. Even me, a lot of times, I'm like, I am struggling with this parenting thing. I must not be doing well, because when I follow conventional advice and I think about the aesthetics that show up online when it comes to parenting, I'm like, that's not what my house looks like. My house looks lived in by toddlers. It's fairly organized for the most part. I'm looking right now and like not at the current moment, but we have the tools to organize them. My kids played this morning. I haven't put it up because they're about to come back home and play again. I don't have a big house, right? I don't have a playroom that is separate from, where they sleep. It's all one. The living room is basically theirs. There's a couch over there, like, right. There's a sectional for us to sit on, but everything else is the kids. It's where they eat. It's where they lay down. It's where they play. We got this big figgy play couch. All of that is right here. And so that advice makes me feel guilty and made me feel less confident in my parenting, even though what matters is that my kids happy, healthy, joyful. They feel safe at home. They love, hi, mom. That's my daughter's new thing. Like, love giving hugs, really enjoy being around me. That matters, right? That is a signal of good parenting. And I believe there's millions of ways to do that, right? There's not one way to do it. And the aesthetics of parenting, it's just a look, and it could be a facade. It's just a filter, right? Versus what's actually happening day to day. And so trying to keep up with those aesthetics and what we see online definitely leads to a lot of stress, depression, anxiety, guilt, and sometimes parents being like, maybe I shouldn't do this. Like, maybe I'm not fit for this. Also, there's this additional stress when we think about identities. So Black mothers, single mothers, immigrant parents, disabled parents, LGBTQ plus parents, all carry additional layers of stress here. And yet most mainstream advice still centers middle class, two-parent, able-bodied households that we're presuming have some level of wealth, right? Or it makes it look like maybe both parents are making multiple six figures, but we don't even know what those parents do for real, right? Except other than creating content, unless they share more with you. But that's not the average American family. No shade to them. They should be able to share their perspectives. But I think the way that the algorithms push these things out cause a lot of stress on most families where that is not their lived experience. That is not their household structure. And we have to really be careful of that, because that, like, the economic differences, they do matter. So I told you I was going to get to this. So full transparency, I have Uncaped Mama, and I also am a leader over at Parent Porch. Make sure you go follow Parent Porch at Parent Porch on all platforms. You'll see my face all up and through there. Okay. These companies are not charities, right? We do sell products, bundles. We've got a community that's free that you can join over on Parent Porch. I've got some free resources on uncapedmama.com. Definitely go over there and take the What's Draining Your Mom Energy quiz, okay? There is an immediate free resource that you will get from there, and it has been helping a lot of moms lately. So I definitely want to put that out there. But ultimately, I hope to build a revenue stream from this, right? I want to be able to help more moms. And the revenue is necessary, right? To be able to fund the content, to be able to get the equipment, to have the live streams and the podcasts and the platforms and the editing and the groups and speaking. I got to get to the speaking engagements and all that kind of thing, right? So money does have to come in there, right? And you're going to hear me talk about resources that cost money on both platforms. I'm going to share affiliate links, but I also know that not every parent can and not every parent should buy every solution that's out there. Your worth as a parent is not tied to what you can afford and whether you shop with me or not, whether you have the financial investment with me or not. That's why I create this podcast, right? And my content to be able to push out there. So hopefully you're getting value out of the things that I am talking about, while at the same time, I got to make money. And so I try to have a balance. Like, I've been approached with brand deals. I've been approached for affiliate partnerships, right? I've looked into some things. I'm like, this could be cool. Maybe, maybe this is a way that I can help some parents and share these products or services. And some of them, I'm like, after I've done deep research, I'm like, no, it doesn't align with the messaging that I want to put out there. It's not actually affordable based on my research and everything that I've been able to come up with. It's not true. Like the claims that they're making are not true. And so I'm not using it and I'm not going with it. Right. I don't want to promote those things. And I stand on that. I'm going to remain that way. That's why you don't see me doing a bunch of different brand deals. Even with Parent Porch, like I help with the partnerships over there, and I chat with my team over there a lot. I mean, there's stuff that comes in all the time where people want to partner with us, and I look at it and I'm like, no, and we don't do it, right? We don't do it. And so, I and we vet, like, does this product actually help parents? Is it accessible? Can I suggest budget-friendly or community-based alternatives alongside it? Do I feel confident in promoting this and being connected with this, knowing that as my platform is building, it's not huge, but there are a lot of eyes. Parent Porch gets millions of eyes every month, 15 to 20 million. We've had months where we've had 40 to 50 million, right? Which means they have seen my face and I'm going to start showing up in the algorithm. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of impact. And I believe that always, whether I have one eye on me or 50 million, I do believe in operating with integrity and making sure that I am not going against my own beliefs just for a brand deal, just for an affiliate partnership, just for income, because I believe I attracted those opportunities being myself. And I believe I can continue to attract more opportunities like that, being myself and being honest, right? And being genuine. So, this is just me being transparent. So this is a quick message for the other creators that may be listening. And also for people who just consume content. Monetization, affiliate partnerships, brand deals are not inherently like exploitative, right? It's not like this exploitation by default, just because you're doing it because you have to generate revenue or because you're monetized. The danger comes when we use guilt or fear to drive sales, or we're lying and we're being dishonest to our community. And so the responsibility is to, you got to create revenue streams, right? And I want to make sure that I'm doing that by empowering myself and empowering families instead of shaming you all or exploiting my children. That I will never do. Okay. So I just wanted to talk about like those tensions, or like I wanted to address the thoughts people may have where they're like, hold up, you just said, there are real world impacts to these things and there's tone deaf advice, but I just seen you. I gotta address the tensions there. Okay. So, these are some things that I want you to think about, and feel free to answer the questions in the comments and also talk about this amongst your mom friends. You can even come into the Parent Porch community and talk about it there. You can message me about it, but what's the worst or most unrealistic parenting advice you've received? Like just something where you're like, what does it have to do with me? Or, you're like, this is just bad advice through and through for anybody. And I've heard some pretty bad advice. And then how do you tell the difference between advice that's like evidence-based and advice that's just class-based, right? Where it's like, that's not even a reality for anybody that I know in my community. How do you tell the difference? And what would truly inclusive parenting advice sound like for single parents, for foster parents, parents of color, disabled parents, low-income families, or is that the responsibility of every single creator to do? I care about inclusion. So when I'm talking about these topics, I'm going to do my best to, add that in, because I just feel like it's my responsibility as an educator, but also as somebody who really cares about these things, right? To include them, because I think it's important. But not everything impacts my day-to-day life. And so I don't want to become a person who speaks to things that don't impact me. That's where I bring in guests, right? That's where I have the guests speak from their experiences. And then that's how you'll get more awareness. But, what do you all think? Curious about that. Now, for me, some of the worst or most unrealistic parenting advice that I've received is to homeschool my kids. And I'm assuming the assumption was that because I worked from home, I would have a bunch of time to be able to do this. I'm still working 40 hours a week, like at the time, at least. I'm still working 40 hours a week. I still have a job and a schedule, right, where I'm supposed to be on the phone and in meetings, and I still have work to produce and create for this company that I'm working for. At what point do I teach the kids? Not to mention, my kids are 2 and 3 right now. So imagine infants through toddlerhood, they not sitting down, they're trying to be on the call with me, or they want my interaction and they need my interaction. They need the interaction with either other children or other adults, right? As they continue to grow and develop. And I wouldn't be able to give them that. It's not fair to them. That's not good advice. Very unrealistic, right? The only way that that could happen is that I have a significant amount of money coming in. So I've still got to be able to work, right? And that amount of money that is coming in also comes with less time working that job. So I would have to have a job where maybe I'm working 20 to 25 hours a week. So I could at least give 5 hours a day, 4 to 5 hours a day to educating the children. And I would need to make 6 figures. That's possible. It's out there somewhere. But most people who are doing that probably have multiple things going on. How do I tell the difference between advice that's evidence-based and advice that's really just class-based? As a practitioner of like DEI and really thinking about class and how that shows up, I feel like intuitively I start to feel it. Like sometimes I feel in my gut like something's off about that, and I'll think about it and say, yeah, that has to do with like money and accessibility based on somebody's class or their privileges. And you'll hear me a lot acknowledge my privileges at this point. And I think a lot about like, if I grew up, did we have access? When I grew up, did we have access to that? Nope, that's probably class-based. You told my grandma we needed a nanny, or my mama we needed a nanny. First of all, what is a nanny and how? Because people got to work multiple jobs, right? So that's one way. I also, I'll do some research and see what's evidence-based. And even if it's evidence-based, right? Even if it's great advice, it doesn't mean that it applies to my household and my household situation and my finances and everything else. So I consider that. And I'm really in a stage of like, I became more knowledgeable about something, but it doesn't apply to me. And that's been helping me a ton. Truly inclusive parenting advice. What would it look like and sound like? I hope that I am an example of that. I also acknowledge that, like I said earlier, I can't address every single type of parenting, but I will make sure to at least mention it for people to think about, so that you know that this is a place where I'm supportive of all parenting, particularly parenting where you're doing your absolute best and you are not intentionally harming children or allowing harm, right, to happen to children. It may be difficult, but I do think that there are plenty of families here, whether you want to have a social media platform or not. I think there's enough parents where we can start to collaborate and spread ideas, right? And spread our experiences. Like I said, without exploiting children, and just being able to talk about the realities of different households. I think we need more of that. How do we get the algorithms to push it? I don't know. I'm trying some new stuff with the podcast to see how things get pushed out and if it gets more eyes, because I know that sometimes a lot of positive content doesn't get pushed out, either if it has to be short and entertaining, or it has to be like dramatic and messy. And that's not what I want my platform to be about. So quick takeaways from this episode. One, all the resources from the stats and things I'm going to put in the description in the show notes for you to see, so you can go and look at some of those stats and those articles. So I'll make sure that's there. But also just some other things, like watch for advice with built-in assumptions. Somebody saying, oh, we'll just hire, where all moms should, will only buy. That there are built-in assumptions there, right? And so that is a red flag to you. Try to avoid that or reject that advice, especially if it doesn't apply to you. Also consider principle over the product. So like, think about like, what's the core idea that's being pushed here, right? Is it connection, structure, safety? Is it richness? Is it wealth? Is this exclusionary? Is this demonizing certain humans? Like, consider all of those things and, consider your resources and your real lived experience and the realities of your household as you're hearing this advice, and figure out what to leave, what to take, what to say, oh, okay, now I'm more knowledgeable about that, and what you can immediately reject and say, I feel like that's not true, or that doesn't apply to me and the people that I know. And then seek free or low cost support. So a big advocate of going to your local libraries and community centers, local bookstores, local record stores, local small businesses, all of those things, right? Think about there are parenting mutual aid groups. There's neighborhood co-ops, baby gear swaps, hand-me-downs you can pass down. There's thrift stores, right? There's all these places where you can build community and also find low-cost supports. There's free mental health groups, even online, or like support groups online. Like I said, the Parent Porch community is free as well. So you can join us there. Just seek those out, right? And understand that in some of those spaces, you are going to see products promoted. Okay, they may promote products because running those groups and platforms costs money. But if you can't afford it, don't feel pressured to do it. You are not less than. My goal, like I said, is to give you quality content based on like my research, my understanding, my own thoughts and opinions, so that can help you along your parenting journey without making you feel like you've got to be a millionaire to be able to be a good parent. Okay, you can be an excellent parent, right? Excellent parent. And there's multiple ways to do that without you being a millionaire. Now, do I think we should all be millionaires? Yes. Another topic for another day. So that's it for this episode. I hope that this was valuable. Mamas, you're doing a good job. I hope that this helped you to just get some insight into why I think parenting advice ignores economic realities, especially in the United States. I hope that this was comforting, it was relatable, and you found it valuable. And I'll be back next time. I'm going to talk about gentle parenting a little bit more. So I'll see you there. Make sure you like, subscribe, share, follow me on TikTok at Uncaped Mama, on Instagram at Uncaped Mama. Make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel. And I will, and also make sure you follow Parent Porch on all platforms, and I will see you next time.